Welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson. And we're going to look back on a 4-0 win for Newcastle United against Union SG. And we'll also look ahead to the visit of Nottingham Forest to St James's Park on Sunday. John, welcome back to the podcast. How are you keeping? Are you well?
I'm very, very well, mate. I thought I might see you in sackcloth and ashes, pal, but it would appear not. But you did say in forecasting a defeat, and you were quite adamant about the fact we're going to get our trousers taken down. But you did say you would hope to be celebrating with me today, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, indeed. And look, I am over the moon to being proved wrong. I did go into the game with a bit of fear. I thought Newcastle's results and form of late against Unions, a great start to their season, just spelled a defeat, to be brutally honest. But I was wrong, which is great to be said. And also, I'm very happy as well that Bayern Munich's officials are being proved wrong in their viewpoint of Nick Voldemort. But more on that in a moment, because I'm sure John's got a little bit to say to the Bayern Munich Chiefs after their words about big German up front. But yes, Newcastle United 4, Union SG 0. And the scoreline suggests total dominance. In reality, Nick Pope had a little bit to do, a few good saves to make. But Newcastle United, other than that, didn't really look in too much bother at all. Great win. And really, John, the difference being they were clinical. And that's what's been missing this season.
Yep, that's absolutely true. I did say, if you remember on the last podcast, that the Belgian Pro League is way, way beneath the Premier League in La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A in Italy. And so it proved. They had a fearsome reputation this season because they were they were champions last season, top of the league again this season, unbeaten, won at PSV in the first Champions League match, etc., etc. But honestly, so were Bradford City when they come up here. They were top of their league and flying high and full of confidence, and they got smacked by 4 as well. Now, I'm not suggesting that Union are the same as Bradford City because they're 2 divisions below, but there is a gulf, and that's why I was confident that what happened would happen, and it did happen. And yes, cynics will say that we were clinical because of the quality of the opposition wasn't the quality of Arsenal and Liverpool and Barcelona, who have beaten us up here this season. And that's true. But you still have got to do the job. It was still a Champions League match. It was still a match which would be a banana skin if we adopted the wrong attitude, if we got a bit twitchy or a bit frightened or a bit arrogant as well. It was more, as we said, it was more what was between the ears than anything else. And Newcastle went out from the start and dominated the thing, and it was an all-round top performance. And the difference was this time, as you suggested, we finished the job. We scored goals, whereas we've been dominant before, got to half time this season in the league, got to half time, Norton thought, dearie me, there's bound to be a period where the opposition will have a show and they'll punish us. We've got nothing to show for being dominant. Here we had something to show for being dominant. And, for me, it was the first time Eddie has started his blue chip front 3 all together. Elanga, Gordon, and Walter Moore, and I thought they were fabulous. I thought they were absolutely top of the pops, and that was a big, big difference. All 3 of them. I mean, that wasn't a bad performance across the park. Let's be truthful, but all 3 of them deserve the greatest of credit for the performances they put in.
Yeah, and we'll talk about them individually in a moment. Just a reminder that this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. And if you were lucky enough to be following Newcastle in Belgium this week, then hopefully you've already downloaded your NordVPN onto your phone and other devices at a discounted offer provided to you guys, the listeners and viewers of the Everything's Black and White podcast. Prices start from just £2.30 with that discount, plus an extra 4 months on your plan. So it's a great deal to have one subscription, 10 devices. You support the podcast while keeping yourself safe, especially on public Wi-Fi. So hit the link and sign up. it's interesting, John, when you look at the stats, because Newcastle United did dominate, they deserved to win. They were the better side. Both sides, though, had 6 shots on target. Newcastle did have more possession, but it wasn't an extreme gulf in possession. And I think what I take away, one of the things I take away, because there's many things to take away, but it's the fact that it wasn't all their own way. Nick Pope still had to be at his very best, made 3 or 4 good saves. And I think sometimes that's a little bit better than just running wild and being totally dominant without any pushback from the opposition.
Yeah, I follow that completely. By the way, when they say 6, both sides had 6 shots on target. If you hit a shot down Pope's throat, that's on target. It's what you do with those shots that count. And their goalkeeper was 6'9", and he was beaten 4 times. Yes, Pope had the odd thing to do, but you know what, Andrew, I felt comfortable throughout the game. I thought Pope will make his saves and we will score. And so it turned out to be. And that was terrific. You feel confident, even though there's an ebb and flow to a game. There's certain games where you feel confident, and we had more of a feeling of hanging on against Arsenal. I'm talking about even when we were 1-0 up. It was more, they are having a real go at us, they're battering us, but we are defending well, we've got big hearts, we'll hang in there. This was much more controlled. This was controlled, and at no stage did I feel we were in danger here. And as you say, in the end, I mean, they hadn't the class we had, and then they hadn't the heart. As the goals started piling up, they were feeling absolutely dispirited, and quite rightly so. And it was a performance which can kick-start our season. We said on the podcast before this match that these are the 2 games to turn our season around. To go into an international break, let's have 2 victories. Let's beat Union because they are beatable. It is the best fixture out of the 8 on paper to get a win, certainly a win away from home. And then Forest, where Big Ange has not got a win in the league since he joined Forest, and we are at home. That is a great opportunity, especially now with the lift we got in Belgium. So this was an absolutely critical few days, and so far, so good.
Yep, certainly. So just a reminder that it's Gordon got 2 from the spot. Waldemar got the first goal, and Harvey Barnes dropped it up very late in the game. And I think you mentioned something just earlier, John, which is really interesting, is the fact that this season we've seen Newcastle United dominate the first 45. We've seen it last season as well. Half-time whistle goes and you think, oh my goodness me, that's going to come back to bite one behind. Now getting the goals they have done and taking their chances, it's going to be a bit of a mentality thing as well, isn't it? In many ways, this is bigger than just 3 points in the Champions League, and there's other points I'll make in a moment. But just starting on the mentality point, to have 2 goals in the first half when you have been dominant and previously you haven't been in that position, that will be a massive boost mentally to them, won't it?
Oh, aye. Can you imagine if we'd lost 4-0? What it would have been like going into the Forest game? It would have been crisis time, all letters in capital. It would have really, this was the one that set us up. And it had to be earned. I admit we are superior to them, but that counts for nothing if you haven't got big hearts, and if you're not organized, and if you're not offensive, and if you're non-believers. We had all that, and it does set us up and put us in the right frame of mind. And Eddie said, didn't he, after the crunch of Arsenal, I'm so pleased we've got a game so quickly. And look what that game's done for us. It's Arsenal is now put in a box and put to the back of the cupboard. It's yesterday's news, because we've got this. If we'd had a fester all week on the Arsenal defeat before we played Forest, it would have been bad news. We've got all the bad feeling out of our system with a good performance as well as a good result, with a lot of goals, and by the way, with yet another clean sheet away from home. We're very, very good at that. Let's start keeping clean sheets at home now, because we keep them away very, very well. And this is a huge boost for us playing Forest. And it's a boost because every part of the game was well. We played well defensively. The midfielders looked like a midfield again, and the attackers were collectively. I've been imploring to get more from the wide players, etc., etc. We got a lot more from the wide players here. I thought Anthony Gordon had been activated by jump leads, and he looked back to the sort of person he was. He was last season. We've also found a guy to take the penalties after Isak, because he took them brilliantly. He took them absolutely brilliantly. And you think of his finishing in ordinary play, and then he steps up for a penalty, and you think, oh, dearie me, because he finishes poorly in ordinary play, but he finished wonderfully. And when he had it again, I'm thinking it's all right to finish the first penalty, but when you've got another one and your mind's going, do I put it in the same place? Do I put it in the opposite place? And there's more pressure on the second penalty than there is on the first penalty. And he took it brilliantly. So we found a guy to take the penalties. His overall performance was good. And Elanga, that's his best performance since he come to Newcastle for me, which sets him up nicely, considering the next game's his old club, Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a big night for a lot of individuals who've come in for some criticism over the past few weeks. Nick Pope, after what happened against Arsenal, Harvey Barnes has started the season really slowly. Anthony Gordon has not looked the same player that we've come to expect. Voltemade, after the comments from the Bayern official, and Anthony Elanga, as you mentioned there, big money signing, hasn't hit the ground running. But each one of those that I've just named there played a vital part in getting Newcastle United to a 4-0 victory. And that's what I mean about this seems in many ways bigger than just 3 points in the Champions League. It's about giving that momentum to the season across the board, domestically as well. And then to these players who have come in for criticism and on the biggest stage have gone, you know what, I'm going to use that as motivation. Brilliant from Gordon, who, the penalties aside, was brilliant. Really, really good. I mean, his role for Barnes' goal, absolutely superb. Composed to win the ball back, get round the midfielder, and then knock it down the field to Barnes, who went on to score. As you said, Elanga, rapid down the wings, rightly given man of the match. Pope, yes, okay, Newcastle dominated, but he had to be there to make those saves. Barnes with a goal, fantastic. And Voltemade, like I say, some daft criticism from his home country, and to score in the way he did, very clever flick. These individuals who have been criticised stood up when Newcastle United needed them to.
Yeah, they did. And in a mention, and there's a lot of accolades there, and every one of them was deserved. And you must have gone through about half a dozen names there without me counting. And two names not mentioned, for me, Schar and Botman proved their point, by the way, that they're the future of Newcastle United. But they want to be more than the future of Newcastle United as centre-backs. They want to be the present. And when you think how Shaw and Byrne have played for Newcastle in the past, absolutely immaculately, may I add, Shaw and Byrne have been brilliantly in the past. These two guys come in there, played together, I think it's for the fourth successive time, and looked the business. I mean, Botman looks what he was before injuries start taking big chunks out of his seasons. And now we know why they bought Chow. He's just another Rolls-Royce type of player. And those two looked absolutely terrific. So right across the park, I mean, there's nobody you can say had an iffy game. And normally you can say it was a good team performance, but so-and-so was iffy.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got those two written down. We're going to talk about them, but I think those two came into this game having impressed people, especially Malik Chow.
Yes, absolutely. But they're making a point now, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. But just on those names that I mentioned, the five there that I put to you, I mean, how important was it for the likes of Gordon and Elanga and Barnes to really show something? Because they have been criticised, rightly or wrongly, over the last few weeks.
I think in the very rarefied air of the Premier League and the Champions League, the criticism was justified. I mean, I was wondering what was wrong with Gordon, what was wrong mentally more than physically. He didn't seem to have his old va-va-voom. I mean, Gordon always looks like a bottle of pop that's been shaken and then the lid's been taken off, doesn't it? And out he explodes, sort of thing. He hasn't been like that. But as you said, outside of his 2 penalties, he was terrific. Elanga's been strange because I think he's found it hard to take everything. I mean, Eddie just about crams your brain with facts and figures and go do this and don't do. And I mean, that is a compliment. But, some footballers go away and say, whoa, hey, what's he say again? I can't take all that in. And it takes Gordon was like that when he first come, and it takes a while for it to sink in, and then the penny clicks. Now, all of us, what I have been saying about Elanga this season in his performances for us, he looks very, very quick because obviously he is. He's exceptionally quick. He's not just quick, he's exceptionally quick. But I always remember when he was at Manchester United and he was a kid, people said, this guy's got a real bright future. He's clever, he's quick. But what let him down regularly was his final ball at Man U. And the reason they let him go is they thought he didn't have enough with his final ball. It's all right being quick and skinning the fullback, but if you're overhitting beyond the back post and you're pulling it back and nobody's there, you're not getting your head up before you deliver your cross, then you're in trouble. And it was a little bit different at Forest because of the way they played. The speed was everything. But here, his final ball always let him down, or often let him down. He is now improving that. And that looked much better in Brussels than it had. And once he improves that, he's got everything.
Yeah, indeed. I'm so excited to see what more we can get out of him. We will now go on to Botman and Malik Chiao because they were excellent. Botman won 5 out of 6 duels. Chiao won 5 out of 7. Botman had 9 defensive actions. Chiao had 7. Botman completed 48 out of 51 passes, which was a completion rate of 94%. And Chiao had 40 out of 44 completed, which was a 91% success rate. So there you can see, obviously, they've got that passing ability, which is really important in an Eddie Howe team. That's what he wants. But you're right, John. They look composed. They look like they've got the beginnings of a really, really good partnership. And you look at the bigger picture, and you've kind of alluded to it. Eddie Howe now has 5 if you want to include Jamal Lascelles, who's not in the Champions League squad, but of course can be picked for the domestic campaign. 4 or 5 really good centre backs to compete against each other, and that is one of the foundations of success,
without a shadow of doubt. And he has addressed, and Newcastle United he's addressed the 2 problems we had. First of all, Schar and Byrne have been absolutely magnificent, but they're the wrong side of 30. So while they're still today's guys, they're not going to be tomorrow's guys. So you've got to look at that and get that sorted. And he's done that with Chow and with Botman. The other thing with Schar and Byrne, if you can actually criticise them at all on the field, and you can only criticise them in a limited way because they've been magnificent, but they do lack pace, both of them. These 2 don't. And we got taken on the odd occasion through pace, through the heart of our defence. These 2 don't lack pace. So there is a step forward, a step upwards. And I'm delighted. I mean, let's not forget, Eddie has rescued the career of those 2 centre-halves he originally had. Schar was finished under Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce had chucked him out the side and he was ready to leave Newcastle United before Eddie Howe come here. And he turned Byrne from being an honest to goodness, but one-pace 30-something-year-old into an England international. So they have really blossomed under Eddie Howe. If I've got one concern, and it'll make you smile because you think I always bat on about it, but if I've got one concern about having 4 wonderful centre-halves, it's one of them starts playing regularly under Eddie at left-back, and I don't think he is a left-back. And that's a totally different argument from 4 wonderful centre-halves.
Well, I want to get on to Dan Byrne at left-back in a moment, but just on Malik Chow, a few eyebrows were raised in the summer because Newcastle ended up paying substantially more than what Como looked to have agreed for his transfer from Milan. But even at the price they did pay, which was north of 30 odd million, he's looking like a bargain. It's very early on in the season. He's only played a handful of games, but he just seems to be getting better week after week. This could prove to be a very, very shrewd signing, couldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, to be truthful, when Newcastle bought Chow, and it was for a bigger price than they'd agreed with Como. To be truthful, it's not the glib answer, the obvious answer that they see Saudi money. It's not that at all. What it really is that every time a Premier League club comes in for a player abroad, the price goes up because the Premier League's awash with money compared with the Serie A or the other leagues. They're awash with money because of the television rights, etc. So the price goes up, and we in the Premier League have got to live with that. Otherwise, we don't do any business whatsoever. So we've got to live with that. But you know what? You look at what Eddie likes in a player, and if you take a identikit picture of what Eddie likes in a signing, one of the first things you would say is comfortable on the ball in a player who can actually play, because he believes that if he gets that, he can put the rest into him. And he can round the rough edges. He can give him a nice polish. He can create a player if he has that basic comfortable on the ball, can pass it, doesn't look all knobbly knees and one-footed and ungainly. He likes players that can play, and then he can do things with them. And he's proved that over time and time and time again. And when you look at Shaw, that's exactly how he fits into the picture. He's comfortable on the ball. He's a centre-half, but he's a footballer first and foremost. He's not a centre-half in the Jack Charlton mould of centre-halves, and he was good enough to win the World Cup, but that was then and this is now. He is a centre-half in the mould of Bobby Moore, if you go from the same time, but with quickness, which Bobby Moore never had. So, yes, he's got all the make, and he's tall, and he looks elegant, doesn't he? When he runs, he looks elegant. He doesn't look clumsy. He doesn't look as if he's overreaching to get there. He looks an elegant player. And Botman, all the worry about Botman is his fitness. Botman stays fit. They've got a real gem there.
Yep, certainly so. And fingers crossed he can do. Excited to see how this battle for the centre-back pairing goes on throughout the season. Dan Burn did start at left-back, and we said this might be the case in the match preview, and it was all dependent on Lewis Hall, who, of course, missed the Arsenal game. He did come off the bench against Union and got himself around 17, 18 minutes or so. Now, Dan Burn at left-back, are we putting this down to the fact that Lewis Hall is not fit enough to handle the rigours of what Newcastle United have got going on in the diary? Or is there a little bit of something else where, Eddie Howe maybe doesn't want to take Dan Burn out of the starting 11, and while he's got Schar and Botman playing so well, he kind of has to put him back in that left-back position to keep him in? I mean, I would like to think it's just down to Lewis Hall's fitness, and when the kid's back and raring to go, he will be, Newcastle's number one left-back. But part of me does think, obviously, Eddie Howe likes that commitment, that passion, that leadership, as we all do, of Dan Burn. But it'd be certainly interesting to know what's going to happen going forward at left back with Dan Burn.
I think right now it's a bit of both, Andrew. He doesn't yet trust Lewis Hall's ankle to stand up because it was a bad injury, and he doesn't trust it to stand up for 90 minutes, and he thinks there's a little bit of rust there, and he's handling him gently. And that's very convenient, because I think, bless him, I think Eddie would play Dan Burn in goal if he couldn't get him into the team anywhere else. He loves Dan, and he's turned him into a super player, and I'm not having to go at Dan. I mean, he's got a heart as big as he can possibly, as big as himself. But he loves having him, the frying pan job. He loves having him in the team somewhere, and it's very convenient at the moment, isn't it? Because Hall isn't, we accept, up to match pace, and Burn has played left back. He played left back regularly at one stage under Eddie, so that all works out. It would have been interesting if Livramento hadn't got injured, because I know he could switch him to right back and still play Burn, but Trippier's done all right there. So if he'd had Livramento, it would have been a bit of a problem. But it's possible to play Burn. I don't like Burn playing there. I think I've said it so often, I don't want to dwell on it because it seems like persecution when it isn't. I think he's a wonderful centre half. I think the one thing he lacks, and he lacks it in spades, is pace. And when he's nearer the tram line, he's more exposed to pace. And on a couple of occasions, even at Union, you saw somebody fly past him. And what's he doing when you get a close-up of it? He's got his hands out. He's trying to grab his shirt because he knows he's not going to get to him. He's too quick for him. So, and of course, that's a booking. Last night, he did it last night, but he got away with it because he didn't get a hold of his shirt, but he went to try to. And he gets exposed to that more at left back than he ever does at centre half. And I think his lack of pace at left back makes him vulnerable. I think both Dan and Eddie are clever. The way they play, they get him to tuck in as a left back instead of being exposed too far wide. They get him to tuck in, and Eddie demands whoever the winger is and the midfielder on that side is aware of the Burn situation and comes back and covers that when they are attacking us. So he uses the players immediately in front of Burn to help that situation out. It's all very clever. But in a way, everybody should be capable of taking care of themselves and not having to look for the extra support. And therefore, I don't like seeing Dan in that position.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward, especially on Sunday, and we'll talk about Forest in a moment. Dan, won 7 out of 11 duels against Union, 7 defensive actions. And although he was tested at stages, he's still put in a decent enough performance, but certainly one to think about. Just on Tino Livramento, John, we were initially fearing the worst. Then we were told it's not as bad as we first thought. Club have said it's 6 to 8 weeks. Tino, we think, will be out roughly around 6 to 8 weeks, which is probably positive from where we were after the game, thinking it might be months. We're probably looking not this international break, but maybe the next one he could be back. So certainly more positive than we initially thought, and we'll take it, won't we?
Well, isn't it amazing that you hear officially that players out for 2 months and you make a sigh of relief? Because we were worried that it was his ACL again. And, and by the way, when he covered his face in tears on the stretcher, he was thinking this may be the ACL again. And isn't it wonderful that he's not? It's still a blow, 2 months without a player of his quality, but it's a lot better than we thought it might be. And so from that point of view, we've got to be relieved. But we've got 3, as of today, we've got 3 very key players on the injury list. When you think we've got Livramento, we've got Wissa, who haven't been allowed to see yet, and we've got Ramsey, who we've seen so fleetingly it's untrue, but was a big money midfield signing. And all 3 of them are injured. So, there's always a downside, and that's the downside for us. Luckily, the squad's a bit deeper than it was, and therefore we can handle that a lot better than we could. But it's still a blow, no question.
Yeah, certainly. So it'll be interesting to see if Eddie Howe involves maybe Alex Murphy a little bit more, who of course can play left back. Maybe Leo Shahar, who obviously plays on the other flank, but is another full back. So maybe he might turn to them to add a bit more depth. But a quick word for Kieran Trippier, John. According to the stat website that I use, sofascore.com, they ranked him the best player on the pitch against Union, ahead of Anthony Gordon. They ranked him at 7.8 out of 10. And look,
I tell you what, that's what stats do for you. The best player, rely on your eyes. You know football, Andrew. You don't need a book of maths to tell you who's played well. I know it's the modern way in football, and I know it is very revealing. And what it can do, Andrew, is confirm what your eyes tell you. But, I thought, as I said, I don't think there was one player that played poorly in Belgium. But if Kieran Trippier was our man of the match, I'll stand tapping mine. because I can think of 4 players I would give it to before that. As good as Kieran was, and he was. But what they do, they take some, they say, he's passed it, he's won these tackles and he's passed that. Some of the tackles are easy and some of the passes are over 3 inches. It doesn't tell you everything. He played well, but would you give him anywhere near man of the match?
No, I wouldn't have done, but I was just going to make the point that it's great to see how he's just continued to kind of get better from a position where many people thought it was kind of done and dusted. And obviously, he's been helped by injuries to certain players, but then you've got to take your opportunities. And he's one player who's certainly stepped up despite his advance in years. Talk of him getting a new deal as well. Is that something you'd welcome?
Well, it's amazing to say it because he thought, as we thought, that his time was up and that he was going to leave, and Eddie would very reluctantly let him leave as a reward for what he's done for Eddie and Newcastle United, by getting the last payday abroad somewhere. And that looked as if it was going to be the way it was. And then all of a sudden it works out a little bit different. Hall got a bad injury last season. Livramento moved across. And all of a sudden there's Trips back is one of our mainstays. And now with Livramento injured and Hall still a bit iffy, he's crucial at fullback, isn't he? He's the number 1 fullback on the team sheet come Sunday. When you play the right back, when you pick your right back and your left back, the first one you pick, and then you look at what else he can do, is Trips. And he's done terrific, but he's always been a good pro, hasn't he? Whatever club he's been at, he's been a good professional. He's terrific in the dressing room at helping other players to show concern for them, to give them a few tips if they're younger on how they can grow their game, etc., etc. He's a perfect pro, and I'm delighted for him.
Yeah. Would you give him a new deal?
I tell you what, I wouldn't give him it yet. I would wait towards the end of the season and still see that his legs have stayed on, because he's defying nature at the moment. I mean, he really is. And at the moment, you don't want him to go. But I think I would decide on the new deal later on. I wouldn't decide on the new deal in the first couple of days of October for the end of the season and going to the end of next. It'd be about 36, won't it? I won't, by his next new deal was completed. I wouldn't rule it out by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't do it at the moment. And it's not like your Isak or your Tonali or your Gordon, where somebody's going to come along and nick you, because age-wise, that's not going to happen. So I would wait, be a bit clever, wait a little bit on that one, but he's deserving of everything that's happened to him.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Would you give Kieran Trippier a new deal? I mean, John, we're more than half an hour into the show, and we haven't even really discussed the goals. We'll start with yes. Getting the first one. Tonali hitting a volley towards goal, comes from Elanga down the right as well. And Waldemar moving so quickly.
I know, what I think's a sadness for him is that, first of all, they thought it was an OG of one of their players. But secondly, it was then described as hitting. I mean, of course, it went in the opposite direction of the way of Tonali's shot. So somebody had to interfere, because Tonali's shot was going across into the left-hand post and it went in the right-hand post. So, but when you saw it again, it was the cleverest of flicks you could see. He flicked it to his own legs. He did what he's good at. His strength is his feet. His feet not in finishing with boomerang shots like Supermac and Shearer and, shots that rip the back of the net off. His feet are clever. And that was typical of what he does well. It was a clever, clever finish. Totally deliberate, without a shadow of doubt. It's an insult to him to suggest it wasn't deliberate and he somehow got in the way and it went off him. You would still claim it because you do as a centre forward. But it wasn't like that. It was a clever, clever goal. And he's got 3 goals out of 4. And as it's wonderful that Bayern's right and we are absolute idiots and that we are fools. I mean, you're right, Bayern, we are fools. We've just got a bloke that scored 3 goals in 4 games. And it does take an idiot to take a bloke like that.
Yeah, what start to his career. Young man, new city, new culture, new club, new league. It's going to take time for anyone to settle. Then you've got the pressure of the price tag, and he's got 3 in his first 4 games. And you just referred there to the comments made by Bayern Munich, a supervisory board member is how he's described, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. And he congratulated Stuttgart for finding an idiot who will pay that much money, and stressed we would have certainly not done that during an interview with Blinkwood Sport. I mean, look, it just sounds like a very, very bitter thing to say by a club who are used to getting what they want. They are used to buying up Germany's best stars. And I do, as I said on Monday, I think it's a very bizarre thing to say as well, especially it's a fellow countryman. Surely you want to be digging, your fellow countryman up for the World Cup. Yeah, I think it's bitter, and it's totally bizarre as well.
Well, I think it was said for home consumption, and by home consumption I mean in Munich, not in Germany. I think it was a matter of being, or used, as you rightly say, in Germany, of doing anything they want and getting what they want. You're Billy Bunter and you get the bag of sweets every day. And when they don't get one, and it was quite known in Germany that they were chasing this guy, and I think they were caught with their trousers down because they were so egotistical. They thought when Stuttgart wouldn't accept their smaller deals, they thought that Voldemort would wait for them. He would stay and force it in a year's time. When another year of his contract's gone down, they would then get him at the price they wanted to get him at. We then come in with more money. Stuttgart say yes, and the kid says yes, and that shocked them. And therefore, for home consumption in Munich, they've said all these things, which are an absolute disgrace. And why I am disappointed at this fella that said they found idiots in Rummenigge. I mean, he's not just some vague guy in a grey suit behind the scenes who helps with gaining sponsorship or whatever. This was a top player. This guy was a top player in Germany. So for a player of his stature to say that about a fellow German who is in the German international side, does smack of bitterness, and is bitterness, and we don't care damn, because Eddie can use that to turn the thing totally in our advantage by saying to Nick, and no doubt he has, listen, mate, you forget that. You forget they're just bitter. We paid the money, and when we talked to you, we said we will build our side round you, and that is what we're doing. And you know what? Like Tonali got to love us during the 10 months he was off because he saw the way the fans treated him, the way Newcastle wanted him, and the way they've treated him since he come here, and that sort of thing being said at home only strengthens our hand.
Yeah, certainly. So Gordon had 2 penalties, one from a Langer getting fouled, and the other from a handball. As you've already said, it takes some guts to take the second penalty after scoring the first penalty, but he made light work of it. And Harvey Barnes got the last one, and it was a beautiful counter-attacking goal, as we've already mentioned. Gordon winning it back, and it sounds daft, but I love watching the replays because you can really see the determination in Gordon's face. I don't know why, but it's kind of just stuck with us. If you go back and watch it, you'll see what I mean. Like, he is determined to get up that field. It's wonderful. The other thing I really liked about it was Asula, the strength he shows against the centre-back, because the centre-back's clawing all over him. And in some ways, John, to a lesser extent, it reminded me of Supermax's goal in the semi-final when he's got the defender on his back and he shrugs him off. And it was kind of like that. Asula does really well, picks the perfect pass, and then Barnes dinks it over the keeper. It's a really nice goal. And good to see 3 players, really, who, again, have come in for a little bit of criticism, working well together to help Newcastle get the 4th.
Oh, it was a wonderful goal, and it was a team goal, and everybody that was involved in it, as you just said, from Gordon to Asula to Barnes, did their bit of the move brilliantly and executed it brilliantly. It's about time as far as Barnes is concerned, because I thought he'd forgotten how to score goals, because that's always been his strength, and that was a typical Barnes goal. And he's recently never looked like doing that. and that was great. And his rush to get there was great. I think they were utterly demoralised by now, by the way, but I don't want that to take away from anybody. And I've got to say with Asule, there is signs of spring shoots in his development. I don't want to build him up too far. I'm always cautious, and because I don't throw confetti around in a wind. I think it's called experience. Because if you jump on a bandwagon and call somebody a wonderful player long before he is, he might start, and everybody else follows suit. He might start to believe that, and his development might not be the same. And he is nowhere near the finished article. But I tell you what he is. He's an improving young man. He is listening to what he's told, and he's improving. And that is all you can ask of him. And good for him, and good for the Newcastle manager and coaching staff on the ground Monday to Friday. Not that they can do much of that at the moment, but they have worked with him. And he is shown improvements. There's a long way to go, but he's improving. He's not standing still. And that's the important thing.
Yeah, and I think you can see how far he's come on just by the very fact that Eddie Howe is starting to use him more off the bench. Because there was a time when, if he was in the same position with Voldemort or whoever, he'd move Gordon into the centre and the striker would come off, and it wouldn't be a Asule. I mean, you look back to last season, it took a long time for Eddie Howe to use him just for 2 or 3 minutes here or there. But in recent weeks this season, he's coming off the bench, getting more minutes, and more importantly, he's proven himself as well to be more than just legs. He's really helping the club either get a goal or looking a bit threatening. So I think that's a big sign of how far he's come, because Eddie Howe's trusting him more. So long may that continue. Now, Anthony Elanga spoke after the game, John, and he kind of said something on the lines of, this can't be like a one-off. We have to build on it. He added that he was really pleased with the performance. We owed it to the fans because we haven't had the best start to the season, but I think this will help us build momentum. We need to keep that going and let the football do the talking. We played a good game from top to bottom. We need to build on this and carry it on into the Premier League, Cup games and the Champions League. It's important that we keep scoring goals the way that we did and have that fluidity. And no time like the present with Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Big Ange hasn't won a game yet for Forest. They are in the Europa League tonight against Midtjylland at home at the City Ground. So a day less to turn things around in terms of their Premier League preparation. But regardless of who the opposition is, Newcastle at home, on the back of a fantastic win in Europe, we should be confident that Newcastle can build on it. And as Elanga says, John, they have to.
Well, we are confident. I want to know that you're confident, because
I am.
Good, that's good. So all the doubts that you had before Brussels have been swept away, which is nice to see. I am confident, but I was confident anyway, because I think Forest are made for us. But we've got to beat them. And by Jove, we have to. We've got one Premier League win, so that's got to be put right. But the mood's so different. And regardless of what happens with Forest in Europe tonight, they've still got no Premier League wins under Big Ange when they come up here. And, Big Ange has found it as hard at Forest as he did at Spurs domestically, not in Europe. He's found it as hard. And let us remember, he hasn't won in his 3 games in the Premier League since he went. And by the way, 2 of them one was at Burnley and the other was home to Sunderland. 2 newly promoted sides, and only drew with Burnley and lost to Sunderland, which is hardly making Big Ange the superstar that's going to be carried shoulder high round the town, more the guy that, if he's not careful, will end up in the Trent. We've got to remember as well that this guy come up here twice in the Premier League is Spurs manager and lost both times. So he's made for us. Because of the way he plays, he's made for us. There's managers that won't change come what may. The Almiron at Man United's won, Big Ange's won, and Russell Martin up at Glasgow Rangers has won. And even when the results go poorly, they won't change their philosophy. They won't even tinker with it. Well, that's great because we know what Forest are going to be against us, and this is a game we've got to win. And we haven't scored goals in the Premier League. We've scored 4 now in the Champions League in one game, but they'll give you a chance. A lot of people come up here and park the bus, 2 lots of 4, and you've got to beat them. And sometimes we haven't had the nous this season to break that down. But I don't think Forest will play that way up here. They'll come and have a go at us, which will allow us to have a go at them.
I think it's all about that key word again, isn't it? Momentum. And you can say, as we have done all this season, Newcastle United have played well here, played well there. They should have maybe picked up a point against XYZ. They were unfortunate, they haven't got Isak to help out, etc., etc. But the best way to get momentum is to win games. And they've done that in Europe against a decent enough side, played very well. So this is exactly the perfect thing you want going into Sunday. And for me, it'll be even a little bit more sweeter if we do beat Forest, because I cannot stand Ange. I mean, I cannot stand that bloke. I think he's rude. I think he's arrogant. And if this goes the wrong way for him at Forest, I will be over the moon. And
I love playing against Ange, though. I love playing against Ange because you can beat him. Because he's style, you can beat him.
It's made for Newcastle, this game, certainly so. I'll read some stats out, John, then we'll go through the team that you would like to see against Nottingham Forest. Where have my stats gone? Because Newcastle United have got a decent enough record against Forest, and I know you say stats on everything, but they've done well against them. Let me just read through them.
I remember off the top of my head, and you're right, we've done well against them, but I remember off the top of the head, Chris Wood getting a bloody hat-trick up here. That wasn't such a healthy time against them.
No, but I get that one. Newcastle have won 6 of the last 7 league meetings with Nottingham Forest, including their last 3 in a row, and that was since that 3-1 defeat in December 2023. The Magpies last won more in succession over the Tricky Trees in March 1937. Who are the Tricky Trees? That's the nickname? Is it? I've never heard.
That's the nickname of Forest because it's a forest and all that.
There you go. But
there's some information for you.
Nottingham Forest have lost 8 of the last 9 league visits to Newcastle, winning just 1, conceding 24 goals in that time. So, we've done all right, but, stats are there to be rewritten, and we don't want them to be rewritten. We want Newcastle to continue in this form. Who starts then, John? Are we going to see many changes at all, do you think? Because, once again, quite a few players who I would expect to play on Sunday had 90 minutes worth of football. Botman, Schar, Tonali. So we're really going to get to see kind of the energy levels and the stamina, which they should have. They're professional athletes, got the best gyms and doctors in the world to help them. But it's going to be interesting, isn't it? We'll start with that back line, because assuming Nick Pope is your goalkeeper, who is the back four?
Well, can I say, this will probably spoil it for you, but can I say that if it was up to me, and Eddie's a totally different human being, and we all believe in Eddie, there's no question about that, but I would go unchanged. I would feel the side that started there. Because all this business of spreading a load, of course you've got to do that over quite a long programme. But this, if they can't play midweek and weekend, there's something sadly wrong, man, because in the old days, they used to do that on pitches that was like corrugated iron, and with a ball which put an indent in your head if you headed it, they just did that automatically every week. And I would, if I could, start with nobody's got any knocks, etc., etc. Because this business of needing rest, a lot of players are going to get a rest anyway after Forest. The international players aren't, because they're going to go away and play for their country. But we're not too bothered about whether they're tired when they go on international thing. That's the international manager's problem. But they're going to get a rest after this game. So is there one more game left in that tank before a fortnight off? I would certainly hope so. I would, if it was my team, and it's not, it's Eddie's team, I would start with it, because Who do you need to take out? And by the way, you know what that means. That means I've actually picked Burn at left back, but I just think that the manager will anyway. So that I would play the same team, because who deserves not to start on form? Who deserves to be left out from Brussels? In what way are we going to improve the side by dropping one of those players?
No, you're spot on. And when you talk about momentum, you kind of have to play as many as those players as possible to keep that momentum going, to keep that rhythm going. And you're right. I mean, for many, potentially, the only man in threat might be Dan Burn. But if we're speaking about what Eddie Howe is likely to do, then he's going to stay in that team. And then other than that, yeah, I mean, you're not going to change the midfield three. Looks like he's still managing Joelinton's fitness. He was...
Yes.
Man that came off on the hour mark, but he's not going to drop out that side for Miley. We'll probably see the same if Newcastle are ahead. He might come off with an hour gone, and Miley slips into that centre. But then the wingers, that's where we've seen a lot of the change. But again, Alanga and Gordon have played well. You're right. There's a break coming up. Both will be called up to their respective.
And Elanga's playing against Forest. You're not going to drop him from Murphy in the Forest game, are you?
No. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, and that puts that question kind of straight to bed. But let us know in the comments what you would do. Is it going to be unchanged? Would you potentially drop out Dan Burn and bring Lewis Hall in? Would you maybe switch one of the wingers? Although, like we say, we don't think that will happen. John, how important is it that Newcastle United do build on that fantastic night in Brussels?
Crucial. Absolutely crucial. When I was at my tub thumping worst before the game in Brussels, and went a bit crackers on air about it all being in between the ears, and it's exactly the same again. I mean, get them in that darkened room again, and Eddie, and talk to them about, you did yourself proud in Brussels. Now do yourself proud in front of all the Newcastle supporters at home. Correct your Premier League record, which isn't good. Get us away from the bottom. This is a great opportunity. Make the mood in the city be transformed as it was in Brussels by 2 wins in the goal, and have a lovely fortnight before you come back and we all start again. This is another opportunity. Don't let it go by. And I think these guys are the sort of guys that, like a sponge, take this in and take it aboard and do it. It says, I had no feeling that there would be any complacency or whatever at Brussels. I think, in a strange way, in Brussels, what happened against Arsenal set it up, because the togetherness was going to come in the face of cruelty, in the face of getting something you didn't deserve, which is losing in the 96th minute. Comes a togetherness which, together with ability, means you can win, especially when the opposition isn't top draw like Arsenal, Liverpool, Barcelona, but is Union and is Nottingham Forest. Good opposition, but not the cream of the crop. And I think we will have the right attitude. I mean, it sounds ironic, Andrew, isn't it? But we're more likely to pick up something away from home. I mean, we've had 3 0-0 draws and 1 away in the Champions League. It's our home record where we've had 3 defeats already. That would be alarm bells until you realise who the defeats were against, and that we were never out of any of the 3 games. I believe against Liverpool, Arsenal and Barcelona, we could have got something out of all 3 of those games. We weren't taking a part in any 3 of those games. So, but we've still had 3 defeats at home. And we've got to put that right. In this, you will not get a better opportunity than Forest at home. Under Ange, especially under Ange, this is a different Forest to last season, isn't it?
It is. And look, Wolves came up a few weeks ago and we said this is the best opportunity to get that first win at home. They did it. So fingers crossed they can do on Sunday. Before I ask for your score prediction, John, or your result prediction rather, just a brief word on Alexander Isak, because his start to Liverpool hasn't gone particularly well. And for those listening, John has got a little bit of a smirk on his face. Not a big one, not like a Cheshire cat, but a little bit of a one. Thoughts on it so far?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, don't make me smile. I've got a split lip. But it's certainly my heart is not going out to either him or to Slot. Um, because, as I've said a million times, it's the way the thing happened. Not that it did happen, but the way the thing happened. If you put your professional hat on and try to forget your annoyance at the way he treated us, then it's not too much of a surprise because the guy's had no pre-season. By the way, when we say we've got to get him up to scratch quickly as well. These guys, Isak hasn't played pre-season. It's his own flipping fault, by the way. So that's why I don't care. But he didn't play pre-season or the early Premier League games, so he's not going to hit the ground running and be in for. He had no pre-season. He's not going to be able to do that, and he hasn't been able to do that. And I bet Ikitiki is feeling a little bit fragile about the fact that he's there and Hugo's playing well and Alexander isn't playing well, but Alexander will be on the team sheet as number one because there's 125 million reasons. And by the way, he is a very, very good player. Let's not pretend 27 goals for us last season. But honestly, it hasn't worked for him. Serves him right and serves them right. And they've just lost 2 games on the trot, so perhaps they now realise that they're not invincible. They're not the Arsenal Invincibles, and that they might find it tougher this season than they were doing. And as I say, I've got no sympathy for either the individual or the club on that score whatsoever. But it shows that you can't buy automatic success when you think of the money they spent on Wirtz and the money spent on Isak, about over 100 million on both of those players who have made no impact on a team that was good enough to win the championship last year. So, but that's their thing to sort out, and ours is ours. Um, but that's as well why I am willing Voldemort to be everything that he wants to be because he's a lovely lad. He's thrilled to bits to be here. He's got clever feet. A lot of people have said we've paid over the odds. He's been ridiculed in his own country. God bless him. He is coming here and he is still going out there and trying to do the right thing and is looking better by the game. And it was wonderful that he wanted to twist Anthony Gordon's arm and take the penalties because that's what centre forwards should do. They should want to take the penalties. It was wonderful that he did. Good on him. But I wonder if he took it, if he would have stood with his back to the goal and flicked it through his legs into the net because he much prefers the clever stuff than putting your laces through it. Would have been interesting to see him take a penalty from that point of view. But hey ho, I'm much more concerned about this game, and you're going to ask me now, and I'm going to tell you now. Newcastle will beat Nottingham Forest, and I'm taking 2-0.
2-0. I'm going to go for 4-1. I think they might concede a goal. I think the left back area might be a little bit of a vulnerable position for Newcastle because he will play Dan Burn, I think. But I think Newcastle, good confidence. It sounds daft saying 4-0 given that they've not really scored much goals in the Premier League. But I think the way Forest are at the moment and just struggling, he needs a victory. Even if he wins on Thursday night in Europe, he needs that victory more than anything in the Premier League. Doesn't like coming up here. The fans will make it a horrible atmosphere to play in. So I think Newcastle United will enjoy Sunday. I'm going to go for 4-4 and 4-1 goals on the score sheet, and fingers crossed I am right. John, thank you as always for providing the match review.
My pleasure.
To you guys watching and listening, thank you for joining us. Do hit like, do hit subscribe on YouTube, do get into the comments, leave us a rating and review on the audio only platform. Remember to take advantage of a discounted offer on your NordVPN plan, and me and John will be back throughout the international break with a couple of special episodes, so stay tuned for